A little while too.
Okay.
Okay, we're live.
So good night, everyone. We are beginning another meeting of the Center for Legal and Asian Studies of the University of São Paulo, which we kindly name as CELA. I am Rafael Bresciani, one of the coordinators of the center, and I will be the host and the mediator of this event. Tonight, we have the pleasure to hear and to discuss different perspectives of how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the legal practice in Brazil and in Japan. And I'm delighted to introduce our guests, which are Clarissa Yokomizo and Dai Vazaki. Clarissa is a partner of Souto Correia Advogados in Brazil. She holds a bachelor's degree from PUC São Paulo, a master's degree from Panteão Assá in Paris, a post-graduation in Spain, and a master's in corporate finance from the University of Wales. While Dai is an experienced lawyer and has worked long years, more than a decade in Anderson Mori, if I'm not mistaken. And in 2019, he joined the Tokyo International Law Office. He holds a LLB and a JD from Keio University, as well as an LLM in business law from the Los Angeles University Law School. Now our guests have been introduced. May we kick off? Dai?
Yeah.
I'll give you the word.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Hawaii, for your kind introduction. So first of all, thank you everyone for having your time for today's event. So I have been in São Paulo from 2015 to 16 with my wife and 2 kids, and worked at Matsuhiro during the time. So during the period, as I mentioned earlier, Kura, Kayo, and many Paulista helped me a lot, even though I could not Portuguese at all. So I owe you a lot. So this time it's my very pleasure to attend this event, and it's my pleasure to have opportunity to speak with you all about the impact of COVID-19 in Japan. I hope this presentation will be helpful for you to have a better understanding about the Japanese culture and the Japanese legal system. So let me share the presentation. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Can you see that? Is that my presentation material?
Yes.
Yes,
good.
That's appearing.
Okay, so maybe many of you have not maybe before, so please let me introduce myself and my law firm briefly. So my name is Dai, and I'm a Japanese lawyer at Tokyo International Law Office. My main practice area is corporate, antitrust, and compliance issue, including data privacy. So recently I developed my law firm named Tokyo International Law Office. Is a very new law firm and very unique. I think it's a very unique law firm focusing mainly cross-border transactions and cross-border litigation mission. And we had a very clear mission toward our customers. So here is my firm's mission, being an arsenal for our clients to succeed in global competition. Some of you may know Japan is right now an aging society. Average age of Japanese people is about 47 or 48 years old. So it's a quite old society. So as Japanese markets tends to shrink or become small, and developing its business itself outside of Japan is not evitable for all Japanese companies. That is why we, our mission, gonna be focusing on international cross-border transaction, mainly for Japanese companies, but also we work for foreign global companies as well. And so here is our practice: M&A, cross-border transactions, and any other commercial issues for the international transaction. So let's move to today's topic about COVID-19. So what is happening in Japan? So it is very sad, but in our daily life, almost every day, so Japanese news said about COVID-19, how many people died, how many people newly infected. It is very, very sad. However, I think so, personally believe that compared with other countries, I believe Japanese people will manage the situation. So let's see the current situation and what's been happened since last year. So this is updated information about current cases in Japan right now. So since last year, more than 10,000 people died sadly, but compared with the total number of our people, it's still only 0.01%. And even though the people affected COVID-19, almost all 98% people will recover. So we Japanese people believe that so we manage well. But as you see this graph shows how many people newly affected in a day. So right now it's here. And the first wave will here, April 2020, last summer 2020, and third wave came the last end of year. Right now, we are in the middle of the fourth wave, and Japanese government and people right now are very, very concerned about what is happening in this summer, or we can successfully hold Tokyo Olympic game. And for this situation, Japanese government had many measures to react to manage this situation. First of all, economic measure, request for business closure. It's called we call it a state of emergency declaration, but it's very, very unique one compared with other countries because it is a kind of soft lockdown, and Japanese government may please people do not outside of their house, but they do not order that. That is, even though if they do not obey to the request, Japanese government cannot issue any sanction about that. The second economic measure is financial aid, and third one is having a relaxed time frame for tax filing or having a shareholders meeting, any corporate reactions. And the second one is so labor and employment measures. Japanese government supports the company's remote working style. They are kindly offering some unique environment to work from home, including I'm talking about so Japanese unique seal issues later at this presentation. So blah blah blah. There are a lot of other measures for like restricting international travel restrictions, or to protect medical or pharmacy industry. Japanese government introduced a new foreign direct investment regulation. So today I'd like to focusing on two topics. First one is a state of emergency declaration, and the second one is a seal issue. Let's see. So what is a state of emergency? As I mentioned earlier, it's a soft lockdown. And I mean, only the certain period, the Japanese government asked ordinary people not to go out of their home and wearing a mask, avoid to be crowded. Just say something like that. It's not order for ordinary people but the government can ask business operators to shut down the restaurant or their office for only for the limited scopes. So why Japanese government saying that treat it as a soft lockdown? Some foreigner or newspaper saying that so Japanese law does not mandate penalties for violation. That's right. So this measure, government can strongly request that people say stay home, but they cannot order them to do so. For this order, some foreigners say that Japanese constitution would need to be amended to impose and enforce a lockdown. But it's not correct. There is certainly no need to revise Japanese constitution to create a legal authority to enforce a lockdown. So Article 41 of the present constitution provides a diet with sufficient power to authorize aggressive government action against COVID-19. First, so the best known example of mandatory order in the public health concerns the nuclear power plant meltdown of 2011. Maybe some of you may know, so almost 10 years ago, Japan had a huge earthquake, and nuclear power plant was blasted. So, and this situation, Japanese government using some kind of law and they issue mandatory order to evacuate the zone within 20 kilometers of this power plant. So under the current constitution, Japanese government can still have a strong power to people order to order people stay home. So why did the government fail or did not request mandatory powers? We hear several possible explanations. One is so Japanese people are so responsive to official requests. Even though the Japanese government did not order, but they obey their kind of request. We call it a kind of self-regulation or jishiku works. And another one is so such order unnecessary because of Japan's extremely high standards of hygiene. Other people suggest that it's a political issue that mandatory shutdown would be necessary to pay some extra financial aid for business owners, and it may be damage to the current government's reputation. And one more thing interesting is when I was in the World War II situation, Japanese government was a kind of military thing, and we Japan lost the World War II, and very unlike the situation happened again. So people were very concerned about the government has too strong power for the people. That's for reason possible, but maybe I think so. Currently, Japanese people will not so many people will infected so COVID-19, Japanese government still undervalue the impact of COVID-19. It's just a possibility, and my personal view. So, although right now Japan in the middle of the fourth wave, and it's the biggest one, but this is a photo in this month, but people are still going to their office wearing the mask, but still very, very crowded. And so Japanese people waiting for many people receiving the vaccines as soon as possible, but still is in schedule. And the Japanese government recently announced that maybe it will take a long time for all Japanese people receive the vaccines for 2 times. That's a situation, and that's a little bit brief story about state of emergency. And the next one is it's a kind of Japanese unique culture seal. We call it hanko in Japanese. We use this seal for daily life. So when you receive the delivery, you use a seal. When you submit the document to government authority, you affix the seal. When you execute a contract between the individuals, or of course, even though between the companies, we Japanese people often use a seal. Of course, in some cases, like foreigner or non-Japanese people do not have a seal like this. In such a case, it is a typical for allowed to use only their signatures. But in any case, seal is very, very so common things among Japanese business and Japanese culture. So first of all, but even though we often use a seal, in general law, not required by civil law or civil code. Formality is free, does not require any method. But as I mentioned earlier, in practice, often required to affix a seal, not only for formation of contract, but also for submitting documents to governmental authority. And for fax, it's surprisingly, but so we are still using fax to submit legal documents to the court. We cannot use email, only using the fax. Yeah, it's very unique and it's very outdated. So why seal is important for Japanese people? First of all, it's a historical reason. This seal is a symbol of authority. It's carry more than weight than a handwriting signature, because this you see this photo seal. It's created in the gold, and it's the most ancient seal we Japanese people have. It was gift from Chinese emperor to the ancient Japanese king. Like it was given 2,000 years ago, and most of Japanese boy and girl knows about this famous golden seal. So it's a kind of symbol of the power. And as I mentioned earlier, so maybe because of these historical reasons, Japanese people like or often to use a seal. And we have many, many various kind of seals. Not for banking account, for registered personal seal, it is often used for like when you purchase a land or some important things, including the car or a ship or something like that. When you register the ownership of the certain mobile asset, you need to submit the registered personal seal certificate. to governmental authority. And when you incorporate a Japanese corporation, a special seal, here corporate research seal is required. And interestingly, when you become to a lawyer seal is often used. And it is often used for submitting a document to the court. And in addition to these, a lot of seal, we Japanese people have an unregistered personal seal. It is used for mainly for internal docs or receipt packages. So like these, so the reason, so due to the seal is very important for Japanese people, the Japanese law protects the seal. And the civil code, a private document, if it is sealed by seal, it shall be presumed to have been authentically created. That is, so the document with the seal is deemed to be truth and correct. And if seal forgery are considered crimes. Yeah, it's a very strange, but as you see this photo is showing the machine automatically fixing a seal by machine. So I couldn't understand, but one of the major Japanese companies invented it recently in 2019. And it's a kind of bad joke, but it's a real world happening in Japan. Please note, so not so many people using this unique machine, only a few unique big companies use that. So seal itself is problematic for the situation of COVID-19 because so corporate seal, it is always located at a company's office. So for using the company's seal, some employee is required to go to the office and fix it. And the Japanese government see the situation gonna be not good for their remote working policy. But still stupid, the government at the time. When for the authority said that required submission to receive COVID-19 subsidies or any special treatment needs a seal signature. So Japanese government, the policy and the request contradicted each other. And so last October, they finally understood that the situation is not so good for Japanese workers and announced remove stamp seal policy at last. So the seal requirement is very unique one, but we are still in process of organizing the situation right now. So that's all for my presentation about the state of emergency and the unique custom for seal. Thank you for everyone listening my presentation. And please let me know if you have any question. I'm always available for you to answer any question. Thank you very much. I'll turn to Rafael.
Hi, Dai. Thanks for the presentation, and the seal remind me of the stamps and the notarization procedures we have here in Brazil, and I think we also during the COVID-19 we at least tried at some level to gain some flexibility on this point, but I wonder whether the seal is made by the machine. The machine would be charged by the crime. Not good enough. But I think this point it's really important, and it represents how a cultural aspect that that has been in place in society for a long time is facing a shift due to the pandemic, and this is I think one of the points we are observing in different jurisdictions. I don't know whether we should go to Clarissa's presentation, and then we can have a final Q&A session. Okay.
Okay,
So
that works for me, and I have many questions to Dai, so we can do that way.
Thanks, Clarissa. Go ahead, please. Your word.
Okay, I'll also share my screen then. Okay, can you see it now?
We can see. Yes, perfect.
Okay, so, well, thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be back at CELA, especially with my very dear friend Dai. I'll start, well, my presentation is actually more on the really on the lawyers day to day. I mean, the impact of COVID in the legal practice for the lawyers and their activities. And I mean, what has changed, what has improved, what is worse, and you know, from our perspective. So my name is Clarissa. I work for Souto Correia Advogados, which is a full service law firm here in Brazil. We have offices in São Paulo, Rio, Brasilia, and Porto Alegre. So to begin with, I would like to present, as Dai did, you know, the data from Johns Hopkins University regarding the new cases and of COVID in Brazil. So basically, we have almost 65,000 new cases every single day, and this is very sad. I mean, we have basically in 5 days, we had the total amount of deaths that Japan had. So it's really, I mean, the worst situation we could have. Here are data for São Paulo specifically. Every single day, we have around 12 to 15,000 new cases. So, I mean, the situation is really out of control. And I mean, regardless of your political choice or opinion, the country is a mess. The pandemics in Brazil has not been handled properly. We're not investing in vaccines when we should. I mean, the president speaks against science. So unfortunately, now we're paying the price of all these choices, these bad choices that were made. And the mismanagement is so serious that now we have a parliamentary investigation, which we call the CPI, to analyze and well, really try to hold someone accountable. It is a freak show. I mean, it's going on. We all have been following it. So I don't even will talk about it. I'll pass to the changes on the lawyers' lives. And well, when pandemic struck, most companies and law firms, they had to reinvent themselves. So of course, the first aspect and the obvious change in the legal practice was the home office. So luckily, most lawyers can work from home, as we mainly need, internet and a laptop. Of course, it can be challenging because, especially for those who do not live alone, if you have kids, it's hard. If you have to take care of someone, it's really hard. Schools were closed. We couldn't hold on to the support from family, from helpers and nannies and all. because we were all quarantining. So, but at the same time, the clients are more demanding than ever because they're also bored at home, and they, they think, well, you are there anyway, right? I mean, it's not like you're at a restaurant having dinner with your family. So the clients really feel that they can contact their lawyers at any time. And for example, through WhatsApp, all clients contact us through WhatsApp, and you're never out of office. Another important point that we have here in Brazil, and that point I think Japan is really similar, is the bureaucracy. Brazil is a very, very bureaucratic country. It has always been. I mean, this is an heritage from our Portuguese parents. And according to this World Bank's report, among 190 countries, we are 124. So you can see here the countries that are above us, and this is for a country our size, and with our economic power, this is just absurd. But hey, we are before Argentina, so yay. And here is something that all organizations have been forced to change one way or another due to the pandemics, even though many were not planning to do so and faced more difficulties than others. But what has really changed in the different practice fields? I mean, for lawyers, what is different now? So my idea here was to bring some daily examples. I mean, I've discussed with people from my law firm who work in different practices, and the idea is to not really mention law by law, but really show an overall aspects. So regarding litigation, well, luckily many case records were already digital. So, I mean, that means that the parties and the lawyers, they can access it through the court's website. They can petition online, and, you don't have to physically go to the courthouse. However, some are not digital yet, and this picture here is a very common scene, unfortunately, in certain courthouses and government buildings. So, of course, these kind of files will stand there and wait. So they will certainly take longer to be analyzed and to be decided. But even, the digital case files, sometimes we have these kind of problems. I mean, anyone who works with the TJ has seen this. And when the pandemic struck really badly, even digital files were the deadlines, the terms were suspended. So, I mean, again, Brazil is the worst position we could be. So that's our reality. But now we face new problems, and one of them is, with home office, how do we reach judges? Because, now a little context here in Brazil. Well, back in the day, it was not that hard. You could go to the courthouse, and then, each judge has his own chambers, his room. And then you just talk to his or her assistant, and, is he busy? Can I talk? And sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but you know where to go and who to talk to. And so then you just enter in the judge's chamber and talk to her or him, But now you don't know where to go and how to reach, and it's almost like it's a treasure hunt, because when you need to call the courthouse to see if they can give you a phone number for the judge's assistant. Then you get this phone, then you have to send a WhatsApp message, and then schedule maybe a Zoom meeting to talk to the judge's assistant, and then to finally schedule an online meeting with the judge. So, and I mean that when you were able to go through all these steps. And another change is that now we have video calls, online meetings and with judges, and we have online court sessions. So it might be really challenging for a number of reasons. I mean, picture a very old school lawyer. I mean, they're not really into technology to begin with, and even if someone handles all the digital part, I mean, they don't feel comfortable, doing this and talking to a machine. And in our law firm, for example, we had some cases that the judges, they asked the lawyers to record a video with the oral arguments that they want to present. So, this really raises new questions. I mean, which resources do we need to be, to work from home at this point? I mean, do we need like a studio? Do we need a good microphone? Do we need special lighting? Do we need a good scenario? Will that make my presentation more convincing? Do I need a nice bookshelf background, even if it's fake? Do really lawyers have to become like performers and actors? This is really challenging, for lawyers. But of course, this new video life is challenging to everyone, as we were discussing earlier, because not only to lawyers, we have these very well-known situations with half dressed people, sleeping judges, and we have this one is my favorite, the lawyer that had some filter, like cat filter, and it's lovely because then he's like, no, I'm not a cat. Like, oh yeah, okay, we figured that. But I mean, this is the new normal. This is a new situation that we are obliged to face. And if you go to, for example, labor law as well, I mean, the practitioners face the same issues, because they also have all this, the procedure, the litigation, but they also have a very specific problem. So I was discussing with a partner from our law firm, and the main complaint is the uncertainty and the fact that the government took too long to act. So the pandemic started, let's say, in March last year. And then the medidas provisórias, the provisional measures, they were issued by the end of April, and then they were being not renewed, but reinforced until December the 3rd. Great, but then on 1 day later, 2 days later, on January 1st, I mean, we still had the very same situation. The pandemics was still there, so and they weren't applicable anymore, And the new regulation was only issued again on April 26th, which means we were 4 months without these specific applicable rules. And the thing is that people didn't have this proper rules to follow, and when they did have some action plans or some decrees, sometimes they were divergent. So, for example, we can have a national plan, a state plan, and a municipal plan or directory, and sometimes they contradict each other. So, I mean, which one should we follow? So, for example, the state one tells that you can stay open till 8 p.m., but the other one till 6 p.m. And that's a problem because, the companies did not know how to follow this regulation. I mean, could they be open? If so, for how long? At what time they had to close? Were they considered a service? Were they considered some other kind? For example, we have a client, if the cinema chain service or is it entertainment, and another very big issue related to labor law is again, the absence of a proper regulation, because, for example, the World Health Organization has rules stating that a risk group is anyone with okay, I'll not say it, comorbidities. And but the federal law states that, you know, only if such comorbidities are not under control, you know, if you have an additional problem, but you take medicine and you're okay, then you shouldn't be considered a risk group. And so the companies were not obliged to let this person work from home, for example, or not work, you know, give them a license or something. And same thing with pregnant women. I mean, are they risk group? Are they not? You know, now we just recently they decided, but it was a problem because, you know, if I follow the law, then the labor prosecutor office might come investigate me because I'm not following the World Health Organization rule, you know. And again, I'm following the law, but you know, if the Ministério Público, the labor prosecutor office, understands differently, I mean, what can we do? You know, you have to really defend yourself, and it might be a problem, might definitely be an issue. And again, sometimes you're a risk group for working, but you're not a risk group for vaccination purposes. We also dealt with that, you know. So this uncertainty and this, it's really challenging for people working with labor law. And another problem is that during this whole pandemics, the public prosecutor's office was very active, you know, investigating. So they were, you know, they were sending memos and requesting further information, you know, who is working, who is not, how are they being treated, how is work from home, do they have a proper workplace, you know, how long are they working every day, all of that. And so now I'll talk a little bit about the corporate issues with which I'm actually more familiar. So for corporate matters, the law or the regulation was a bit clearer. So the thing is, back to the bureaucratic word, I mean, government was already trying to be less bureaucratic because, I mean, we had two important laws before the pandemics, which was the debureaucratization law and the Economic Freedom Act. And they both aim to turn certain legal requirements simpler. And so that helped a little bit. Then with the pandemics, there was this concern, especially with the terms, the deadlines for shareholders meeting and the terms of managers and all of that. So then we had an extension for companies, you know, for 7 additional, you had to have it within 7 months from the end of the company's fiscal year. And for cooperatives, it was a 9-month period. The terms of the managers were extended until the very next meeting. What else? The board of directors could take some decisions. I mean, during this period, they could deliberate on urgent matters. They could even declare dividends. So regarding the registration of documents, and again, this is a very bureaucratic place. We don't have a HANCO, we don't have a stamp, but we have many other requirements. So for the registration of the documents, I mean, the deadlines or the timing was changed because, you know, we have a 30-day period to file the document with the Board of Trade, with the Junta Comercial, to the date, and if we do so within 30 days, then the date of the document will retract. And, you know, all these specificities, the law actually stated that, you know, this timing will start counting when the Board of Trade reestablishes its regular services provision, I mean, its services. So, and another good improvement was that, you know, certain government bureaus, such as the Board of Trade of São Paulo, for example, that now accepts the digital signature or electronic signature, and even the digital filing, because for Board of Trade, for some things you still have to, you know, print everything and you have to put in a plastic bag and send it to and take it to the Board of Trade. And now they're starting to implement this digital system, which may seem really nice, very, very revolutionary. But then you think that's something that, other boards of trade have been doing for years. I think Minas Gerais, if I'm not mistaken, has this digital system. I think it's like since 2012 or 2013, something like that. And Rio Grande do Sul since 2017. So, it's not, and São Paulo is the main economic place in Brazil. So you would think that they should be a little better than that. But anyway, at least it's getting better. And the main issue regarding these provisions is also that the law just established deadlines exclusively for the year of 2020, because we thought pandemics wouldn't last that long. So there is this doubt. I mean, what about now? I mean, what are the applicable rules and all that? So it causes a lot of doubt. And but well, it's not only bad news. I mean, we have, for example, virtual meetings. This is another good development for that took place. I mean, it was also being discussed and developed, but it's much better now with the pandemics. So law 14030 included an article on the Civil Code stating that the partners and the shareholders, they can have a remote or a digital meeting. And it means that, you have to have a system from which the shareholders can access and then vote if necessary and ask questions and all of that. And this is, I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages. It should be more accessible because it's easier. I mean, you don't have to take everyone to the same place, to the same room, and so you can save, with the venue price. If you have the venue rent, if it's not in the company, you have to you save with everybody's taxi, parking space, air tickets. So, and it's easier. I mean, we are all here online, so it's easier. It's than going somewhere physically. You just log in there, and then you can take part in the shareholders meeting. The question here is how effective that is, because at the same time, if there are hundreds and thousands of shareholders, can you actually ask questions, express yourself, really participate as you would if you were there in person? I mean, we always know that it's face to face. It's a whole different relationship. But anyway, in conclusion, what I wanted to bring to you is that the pandemics, it has changed the way we live, of course, and the way we interact and the way we work. So it did bring many challenges, but for lawyers, it also brought many opportunities. And the idea is that, hope some of these advantages or these improvements will last longer than the pandemics and, simplify somehow a lawyer's life. So thank you. That was my presentation. You have my email here. If you have any questions, please, I'm all ears.
Thank you very much, Clarissa. Apart from the points you added, which I also experienced in this last year, I think the main one was the Board of Trade that even this year it suddenly stopped in São Paulo, and it should be something that I mean we're facing very relevant modifications in how certain public services work, but I think the Board of Trade of São Paulo is still struggling. Let's see. Let's hope for them to improve this process. One additional aspect that your presentation reminded me is with respect to registries of titles and deeds in Brazil, which are relevant for purposes of perfecting security documents. And it's something that I think falls under the problems you mentioned of what law is applicable, because each city has a different registry, each state has a different regulation, each city has a different proposal. So I think this was quite a mess, and I think they tried to anticipate migration to more digitalized system, but I think even today, still under the pandemic, what we are facing is, although some registries accept a digital document signed electronically, we see some registries requesting, okay, you can sign electronically, but please print and bring me the paper here. So it's something that, well, okay, we're going in the right direction, but not there yet.
Yeah, I believe the Board of Trade is still like that. You know, you can digitally sign, but then you have to print and take it there. I mean, but they say they are aiming to change. So let's see, maybe in another 7 years.
Yes. So I'd like to open for questions, but first I will hold my position and I will ask mine. So I'd like to ask Dai. I mean, this moment we're facing right now, it has impacted our.
I think you're on mute, Rafael.
Sorry. Working? Yes, I think it's working now. So I would like to ask you, Dai, if well, how do you see the daily routine of a lawyer in Japan during the pandemic? I think in Brazil, as Clarissa mentioned, we are facing longer hours and more demanding clients, and this combined with this multitasking while you're taking care of the house and trying to make your children learn what they should at school, because for quite a while we did not have schools working properly. How was this aspect in Japan?
Rafael, so thank you for your question. It's a very, very important point for our daily life as well. So as you mentioned that it's the similar situation is happening in Japan. Many of lawyers work from home, but actually right now I'm in the office, and because so how can I say? So I have a big family. Right now I have 3 kids. And some of them study at home, and I cannot work at home because, you know, my apartment, especially so Japanese apartment, tend to be smaller than other countries, and I do not have my own desk at home, so the office itself is the only place for I can work. But in any case, so as you correctly mentioned that, so Japanese clients also tend to demanding right now because of the increasing the uncertainty for the business situation and negotiation situation as well. So they often ask lawyers what is happening for the next month or in the future, and lawyers right now not required. Lawyers are not required only for the correct answer or what the law says, but we often require to what the government will issue a new order in a few months, or what aspect will be happening in near future. That's kind of we are required to be a guide there. So future aspect, that's more changing and demanding our life, and in real world, so they tend to how can I say, call at any time, like all night and in the holidays. So before the COVID-19, they often call me at my office phone number, not to the mobile number. But right now, they do not hesitate to contact us at any time. It's okay. It's okay, but it's a little bit changing my life and how to record my hourly hours for each client. It's a little bit different from the previous hours. But so listening what Clarissa said, Japanese situation in Japan is, I think, so better than situation in Brazil. We do not have facing the serious impact for our daily life, because most of the areas doing business as usual. Of course, we are caring about wearing the mask or having a social distance, but still normal, I think. But we, of course, caring about the future situation because we are in the middle of the fourth wave, and we would like to have the successful Olympic Games like Brazil did 4 years ago. Oh, no, 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Dai. I see Marina raised her hand. I'm just asking one question to Clarissa, and then I'll give you the word. Clarissa, you mentioned the situation in Brazil and all the problems you're facing, and the very high levels of death and contamination. But at this moment, we see also some law firms and other business being authorized to reopen. And I would like to understand the perspective, your perspective, or the perspective from your firm, with respect to going back to offices. Is there I don't know, something already said, well, before vaccination, nobody goes back, or so please feel free to respond.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because it was a matter that, everybody discussed a lot, should we go back? Should we, in our law firm, we already had the habit of working from home. So that helped a lot when the pandemic struck, because, every single lawyer had his own laptop. We have this, our network, everything is connected. You can access all the files safely from home, and I used to work from home a couple of days a month. So I also had, my desk with a second screen, I was already used to it. But in the law firm, there were, when pandemic started on, I guess it was around March, everybody went home. including interns and our back office. So this was a little challenging because not everyone had, for example, good internet access or their own laptops or good computers at home. So we had to change that. Now everybody's, I guess, well settled. And when I think it was around October, I don't know, last year when the situation got a little better, then we reopened our offices, our 4 offices, and but then with all the safety measures. So you have to register yourself if you have to call HR and say, I plan to go back. So they will see who plans to go back as well and see if we can go, because you can only have like 35% or something like that. We in São Paulo, we share our offices. So for example, I have my office, but usually people share the office space. So it's 2 lawyers per room, and then you're not allowed. You have to have 1 per room, and there's also an open space. So you have to have certain distance among people. So it's you have to really make sure where you're going to sit. You have to keep distance. You cannot. We don't have the secretaries are not there every single day. So there is change. But as Dai mentioned, some people just cannot work from home. It's hard, and well, I have 2 kids, and I know it's hard as well. And as Dai mentioned, I know his kids, they're lovely, but it's not that easy to work, with kids playing around and running around and screaming. And so some people really have to run away from home and they go to the office. So we are now open again with very limited capacity. But for those who absolutely need to leave their homes, we can go there. And from what I've been discussing with clients and other people, I know that banks are already like that. They have like a 2 or 3 day in the bank, and then a couple of days from working from home, which I honestly think it's important as well. I work well from home, but I like being at the office because I think it's much easier to connect with people, to discuss, and it's just better for the teamwork and all of that. So I think it's something that will definitely change. From our clients, for example, even our law firm, we were studying, should we get a new floor because the office is already crowded. And I think that's a decision that's definitely on hold because, most people will start working from home at least 2 days a week or something like that.
Thanks, Larissa. Marina, go ahead, please.
Thank you. My question is for Dai. I saw on the first slide that you give legal advice and legal support for startups and venture business. And I wanted to ask you, the pandemic in Brazil was a boost for legal tax and law tax and even gov tax that work with the legal parts. And I wanted to ask you, how was this movement in Japan? Because here in Brazil, we are having a historic year for startups acquisition, for an example. And I wanted to ask you if the pandemic was a boost or it was normal for legal tax.
And if I may also add,
Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Clarissa.
With Marina's question, how was it prior to the pandemics? Because I know Japan can be very technological and at the same point very old-fashioned. And so how was the scenario prior to the pandemics, and how and then Marina's question?
Yeah, first of all, so like legal tech or government tech during the COVID-19 situation, it's boosted up, and but still in process. From M&A, perspective, corporate perspective. Before the pandemic, we often had a interview session and Q&A session, and having a face-to-face meeting before make a decision for the acquisition. But during the COVID-19, it may be difficult for having such a face-to-face meeting. But often we tend to have a virtual meeting using the Zoom or Skype or Teams, and such situation gonna be happened a lot. And for exchange documents, it's a more company's internal procedure, but Japanese companies try to organize the documents or legal documents remotely. So tech companies movement are going to be going up, and some Japanese companies tend to acquire or hire new service for well-organized documents itself. And what's going to be happening during the COVID-19? And so Clarissa mentioned, Japan is unique, so it has a high technology, but also we always respect the old cultural things. People still like how can I say, meeting in person is a polite way to how can I say, develop their trust relationship. So even though the situation gonna be different, but still we have a face-to-face meeting for the important decisions case. It's gonna be still so developing, but let's see in the future. It's gonna be changing right now.
Thanks, Dai. We have one more question from João.
So good evening, Clarissa and I. Thank you for your presentation. I had one main question and a couple of other subsidiary questions, but this main question, Dai kind of already anticipated the answer. I was going to ask about whether you feel like the clients of your offices have adapted to the remote sessions of meetings, especially I mean in litigation cases where the client has to stand before the judge. And I believe it's a more, let's say, a more stressful situation than a meeting with the lawyers of the firm. So do you feel like the absence of being close to the clients physically has impacted the law practice? And also, do you feel like, for example, Brazil has a big problem with a lot of communities which are maybe less, have less access to technology. So even, let's say, Wi-Fi. We have a lot of communities in Brazil which struggle to have access to such tools to be able to even be present in the hearings, for example. So you think that do you think that the judiciary system should have some kind of alternative to these people so that they are not, let's say, stopped from having access to a fair trial?
Thank you. Thank you, Joan. Great question. So for the access to the client, it's an important issue for lawyers, especially for like new law firms, because we need to find new clients always. And to access a new clients gonna be still problematic, but we are trying to having so online seminars or having a contact via Zoom or Teams. But still, at the initial stage, it is very important to know well about your client, right? And so for doing that via the internet or online tools, we are trying to have multiple steps to develop, like not only sending an email, but call to them, or not only to the A of the company, but B person, other person of the company. So multiple times and multiple ways and multiple person. That's going to develop a relationship with your clients. So our firm are trying to do that in a various way from the various lawyers, because we are working as a team, and team play is a very important thing during the COVID-19 situation, because so some people believe that worry about am I isolated from other people? So we are trying to deal with such an anxiety or concern more frequently, more actively. So that's the important thing to develop your client relationship, but also like the problem itself is maybe sometimes inside your firms. So we are organizing our team and having a daily meeting in our firm and knowing the situation each other. And what else? So your second question is?
So my second question is a bit more, let's say, focused on the specific situation of Brazil, where some people do not have access to the let's say, software or technological side of the equation to be part of the, let's say, a lawsuit, or even in Japan, like you mentioned, that many older people maybe do not have, they still value being present and physically along with the lawyers to have this eye-on-eye contact to be sure of how to proceed. So do you feel like this situation where people are forced to be, let's say, apart, do you feel like that has impacted maybe closing of deals or presence of the clients on hearings with judges?
Thank you. So first of all, from our internet, so how can I say, equipment and system itself in Japan is well organized, and we do not have any problem about connect via Wi-Fi or any tools. But as you correctly mentioned, that for old people, they are not get used to using such a high technology. But right now, for the litigation cases, Japanese court are open, and it's a hybrid. So you can choose to go to the court whenever you want, and of course, if you'd like to not to outside of your home, you can choose to make a procedure during the internet process. So we are still in the process of hybrid, but as I mentioned in my presentation, Japanese court is still using the hanko system and the fax system, and the government recent days submitting a new amendment for the civil procedure, and they are allowing the submit a document with email without fax, but still in process. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the new amendment soon. It's our situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dai.
Now going ahead, we have a raised hand. Eduardo, please go ahead.
Okay, this is Eduardo from PwC Japan. Thank you, Clarissa and Dai, for your presentation. My question is actually for both of you. I my experience in Japan in regulation is financial regulation, and I have the impression that most of my clients, they struggle much more with regulatory problems outside of Japan right now. There's not much work related to COVID-19 internal to Japan, at least from my experience. It's mostly big financial institutions, so I could be wrong. But I just feel that the struggle is with dealing with their subsidiaries outside of Japan, or for myself, dealing with regulators outside of Japan. So I would want to know from Dai if you have the same impression that we don't have that many, that our clients are struggling more with external factors outside of Japan than from Japan. And from Clarissa, well, probably I think would be the opposite, that regulatory problems in Brazil are much more difficult. But how hard are for clients in Brazil to deal with the COVID problems and regulatory problems in Brazil and outside? Thank you.
Should I go first? Okay, and so thank you, Eduardo, for the question. And yeah, your feeling is the same as mine. And right now, so my main practice area is a corporate, and having a lot of questions about how to manage the subsidiaries outside of Japan, and the restructuring question gonna be coming up almost every day. And so the reason I think is I think it's an uncertainty of the foreign countries' regulations or their enforcement. And but so we often always discussing with local legal counsels, but they have seen the situation uncertainty. So the most important thing, I think, the daily communication with clients and the local advisors. It's gonna be helpful for your client relax and happy to success for the new future business, I think.
Hi, Eduardo. From our perspective, I think it's so we don't deal that much with the headquarters of foreign companies. I mean, we talk to them, of course, but we handle their Brazilian business naturally. And I mean, in Brazil, we're in such a bad position that, you know, I think Brazil is probably, if it's not the worst, then it's probably one of the worst countries handling the legal expectations from headquarters, because well, the government is insane, and they do not know what to expect, you know, because we have this, oh, there will be a third wave, but at the same time we never left the first one, you know, and this impacts in all kind of legal relationships. So we have many clients questioning us about, you know, act of God or force majeure. Can we apply that, you know, on their contracts? Was there a breach? Wasn't there? And as I mentioned, you know, we have a lot of uncertainty in all aspects, you know, from regulatory, legal aspects up to really how to enforce certain even certain decisions, you know. So I think in Brazil, definitely the foreign entities are definitely worried about their branches in Brazil, and I think the DICE clients are probably more worried about the Brazilian branches than the headquarters itself.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dai, Clarissa, and Eduardo. Moving on, we have a question from Caio.
First of all, thank you very much. Dai and Clarissa for accepting the invitation. It's a privilege to have you here in Cela this evening, or for Dai this morning, for Dai and Eduardo, and also we appreciate the receipt of the invitation by Eduardo, our special invitee from Japan as well. And I would like to ask a question to Dai and Clarissa regarding the system of Hanko and the questions of bureaucracy and formalities regarding documents here in Brazil. Since the pandemic has started, most of companies here in Brazil started to sign documents electronically. But according to Brazilian laws, there are two types of electronic signatures, mainly two types. The first one is one certified electronic signature that we call ECPF, like an electronic tax ID that is used to execute or sign official documents, especially like petitions that you file before a courthouse, like lawyers do. And also we have like normal digital signatures, and there's a lot of companies that have this kind of service like DocuSign and other companies like this way. We often have some heated discussions among friends, even among lawyers, including Rafael, because now actually we have a legal regime here in Brazil that provides that for the electronic tokens, we have the presumption of authenticity, and for the other types of signatures, actually the authenticity is only regarded as acceptable if there's a previous agreement among the parties regarding the use of such alternative means of electronic signaling the documents. And actually, how do I prove this concept between the parties? By a written agreement, or an agreement that use the electronic certified token. Well, we have this problem. Basically, what we do here is to recommend for major contracts to use the electronic certified signature, and for countries with a lesser amount, the alternative ones, even though we have noticed that in many operations, the alternative ones like DocuSign, I think there is in Japan as well, they have been used as a mean to certify signatures. In any case, basically we have a lot of formalities, and this degree of formalities vary according to the reliability of the documents and the position of lawyer regarding which one you recommend to your client that is the safer way to sign a document. Maybe this is the discussion behind the use of Henko in Japan, even in 2021. Basically, we can have other means that are allowed by the civil code to be electronic for documents to be signed, but the Hanko have this presumption of reliability that is deeply ingrained in the culture and probably has some legal support. For that, I would like to know how Japan is facing this new challenge of electronically signaling documents, if there is a hierarchy of electronic signatures like we do have here in Brazil. And to Clarissa, how you are dealing with this new reality of more and more documents being electronic signaling, especially to avoid that huge gatherings of people to sign, especially in major transactions.
Thank you, Kyle. And Kyle, so thank you very much for your kind support to this event. It's my pleasure for that, to helping this event. And thank you also for the question about the e-signature, digital signature. First of all, so in Japan, there is an act about digital signature. It will be affected before the COVID-19, like early 2010. And but for the cultural or practical reason, not so many people, not so many companies use the digital signature. But due to the COVID-19 situation, some companies started to use digital signature, including DocSign or digital sign. But for the regulatory reason, some document is still required to special formalities, including hankos. Like as I said, for the document to register the purchase of the land or important mobile assets, or in some cases, if you'd like to change a director and you'd like to register the corporate register, the office in Japan, you need to submit a document, the seal of the director or officers. Still required, but recently it's gonna be happening that so the authority is allowed to use a signature, even though their practice used to be use a seal. So you're right, it's still in the middle of a process, but Japanese people respecting the hanko culture, but still used to accepting the e-signature because of the COVID-19 situation. Let's see the situation. Thank you for great question about that.
So Caio, in Brazil, for us, I think, well, as you very well explained, we have this hierarchy, and we have decisions from courts, stating that this is not, I believe, certain signature tools were not considered as legitimate as others, and so definitely what we do, our clients are using it more and more. I mean, we always suggest that they use the eCPF, the one that has the ICP rule, that is accepted by the government. What we also do is to include a provision in the agreement that we're signing, stating that the parties agree on having it digitally executed, so no one can argue in the future that that signature wasn't valid or anything like that. So I mean, we have to really find solutions, because it is again, I believe this is one of those things that came and will remain with us. I don't see we having this, for example, I work with M&A, so I don't see this huge closings with 30 people there waiting to sign, pushing you, is it there, is it done yet, can I sign it? And so I really think that this is something that has changed, and we won't go back to the way we were. And if I may take this opportunity to ask Dai a question about the hanko, because this is something that really, I think it's amazing. When I lived in Japan, I had my own hanko, because luckily I have Yokomizu is a Japanese last name, and I bought it for in the Hyakuen, and as a Brazilian, you're always used to falsification and all of that. So I was amazed on how you can buy for $1, my signature, right? And it really amazes me. But then I learned that the Hyakuen ones are only for very for receiving a delivery package or something like that. which is still, I mean, if anyone gets my Amazon package, I will be very sad. But the thing is that I learned that you have to like you can custom make some special hanko, and then you have to register. So that if you could just briefly explain to us how it works, because if I'm not mistaken, you can really have a, I wouldn't say a drawing, but you know, your own stamp, and then you can register it with the government somehow, and then that proves, you know, that is your real hanko, not a fake one. Could you just tell us a little bit how that works?
Yeah. So that's a unique system. So to register the hanko, there are some details, bureaucratic rules, like how can you describe your last name into some font, or so size and color. It's gonna be strictly regulated. So when you try to register your hanko, maybe like you just created personally your new hanko, it will not be accepted by the government, because you need to purchase some some certain hanko shop from that. It's gonna be a practical way, and these registered hanko is useful to be a director or officer to the company, or to purchase a land, but it is used for certain purposes. But for unregistered hanko, seal can be used for many various ways. Like when you in Japan, when you marriage, you need to submit a document to the government, local government, to certify you and your husband are going to be married. During for the document, the seal is required, but unregistered is acceptable. So there are some unique laws or regulation, and of course, it is better for foreigners to have hanko. It's gonna be meaningful, showing your respect for the Japanese culture. It's always good for your attitude, I think. I hope this is address your concern.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good.
Very nice. Thank you both, Diane. Lisa, going ahead. Felix.
Hello, everyone. Good evening to both Diane and Clarissa. It's very nice to have you here, and it's been a very very nice lecture, I'd say. I've enjoyed it very much, and certainly has brought quite some interesting points to me. But my question goes to Dai, and I don't know how short in time we are, if we have any time restriction or whatsoever. But we've been talking about how COVID has affected the practice of law in both Japan and Brazil. But as a student, my question goes in a bit of a different direction, and it's just kind of a question about curiosity. You know, not really that important, but well, how do you feel that COVID has affected the study and the teaching of law in Japan, if it has in any way or shape? Because in Brazil, I feel like it has been, well, in some ways, not really well taught. We didn't really adapt that well. Not everyone, of course, some professors made some great adaptations, but I feel that in general, we have lacked in this kind of, in this matter. And how did Japan react to this? How did Japanese universities react to these COVID restrictions, and how it affected the study and teaching of law? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. So it's gonna be affected a lot right now for the educational situation, especially for the university. They almost all university gonna be for the class online, and many ceremonial things gonna be canceled. So students do not have an opportunity to learn about social activities and a big event right now. So it's a very sad, and some university try to organize such a festival or some event gonna be online, but they are still not used to be attend such a meeting or event via online because as Clarissa mentioned before, so meeting with person in person or via online is totally different, right? So especially for multiple conversation, the one by one is not so different, I think. But like if having a meeting with 10 people or 20 people, it's totally different. So we are having a little bit problem, like when we hold a shareholders meeting, but we are still trying to adjust to efficiently hold such kind of event and ceremony things right now. But so it's talking about university, but in Japan right now, so like a high school or junior high or elementary school, having a school as usual, but without like a ceremonial things, like no musical festival, no field trip. So right now I am 11-year-old kids, but he cannot attend such an event. It's a very, very sad. And I as a father, take him a field trip during holidays or weekends. But it's a very sad that I feel that sometimes he loses opportunity to meet with his friend outside of his class. But so, yeah, let's see in the future, the situation will be changed.
Thank you, Dai. Well, next question is from João.
This question is directed to Clarissa. You mentioned that COVID has brought a lot of uncertainty to the legal system in Brazil. So some judges may interpret COVID as a force majeure event, or some others may abide to, for example, the principle of pacta sunt servanda. And so how has this affected the due diligence process in an M&A operation? So for example, do you have to take into account that maybe a specific company may have, let's say, higher labor costs because of, I don't know, maybe the workers are in a home office, and now, I don't know, maybe the labor judges consider that accidents that take place inside the home of the employees are now labor related. So how has that affected the due diligence when analyzing a fusion or an M&A operation?
João, that's a very good question. I mean, well, lucky for us, we don't have to deal with that that much, because usually our due diligence, the legal aspects, the labor aspects, are mainly with materialized problems. So, you know, usually like Ernst Young, Pricewaterhouse, one of the big four auditing will analyze the procedure and the potential risks. So usually we only analyze, you know, the existing contingency. So then it's easy because, you know, you either have it or don't have it materialized, you know, an existing lawsuit. But your question is very interesting because it's definitely something, I mean, I never thought about before, how maybe the risks for the employer are bigger, because now well, to begin with, you are not there to supervise your employee. So, you know, I know because I discussed this point with our labor partner. She mentioned, for example, the ergonomics of the working station. You know, some big companies, they gave an allowance, $1,000 to build your proper work from home station. So, I mean, my husband got a little bit, so, you know, you're supposed to buy a good chair and a good table and, you know, a second screen to have what you would have in your home. But you know, a company cannot be there to check if you're working properly, you know, or you're lying on the couch. So what the public the prosecutors, the labor prosecutors office is doing, sometimes they request what kind of control do you have, you know, for of your employees. And so many companies, they have prepare, for example, a guide, a work from home guide. So, you know, every 30 minutes, try to stretch, you know, like some labor gymnastic, what in Japan is or used to be very popular, you know, the taiso, is that the how you call it?
Yeah, it's correct.
Yeah, and you know, some they try to control you the at what time do you start working, at what time did you stop working. This is important to have some kind of control. You know, I know that some banks, for example, they have an app on your phone, so you have to log in and log off whenever you start and then working. So it's very difficult indeed, because I mean, the company is not there to supervise. So if in some future, some near future, someone claims many problems, you know, the company will not even be able to say, no, I disagree, because maybe the company isn't even aware, you know. So it's an important issue. I'll definitely ask the labor partners, and then I'll let you know, because I do not have this question, this answer.
Thanks, Lisa. Jumping into John's question, I'd like to understand or to have your perspective, both from Brazilian and Japanese perspective, of what's happening to force majeure discussions, or how is this being interpreted and drafted? I mean, before the pandemic, we had nothing, so the pandemic happened. We can say that something happened from December, November, up to March 2020, but we are still under this pandemic state, and we thought 2020 was the worst case scenario, but here we are with more contamination, more death, and additional impacts due to the pandemic. So I would like to see both the Japanese and the Brazilian perspective, considering agreements that were negotiated, drafted during the pandemic time.
Can I go first? Yeah, thank you. Great question. So force majeure issue is very important, especially for M&A projects. Like, so last year, so what is the most important things for the M&A transaction? One thing I believe that is the purchase price. And how can you so determine the purchase price? EBITDA is often used that before the COVID-19, but last year I often see that EBITDA-C, that means without COVID effect, and that kind of trend gonna be happened in Japan last year. And but so when negotiate with the seller about what's the effect of COVID-19 situation in your company, so right now, so we tend to discuss more deeply about the effect or what can see happening in this transaction for the COVID-19 situation, and tend to longer agreement and during the situation. I'm not sure you have ever see the Japanese transaction document. It's usually it's very short compared with US style or any other European style documents. But the COVID-19 situation makes Japanese legal documents longer. So it is happy for Japanese lawyer, but not happy for companies or other in-house lawyers, I think. That's getting happening. And so this year, I'm not seeing, so I'm talking about it still M&A situation. The buyer would not like to accept the concept of the EBITDA because last year, many people, the situation will end in the next year, but the effect is still continuing. And the buyer would not like to accept such a situation, and EBITDA concept is going to be decreasing right now. It's still happening right now, and otherwise, the M&A situation with regard to force majeure in general, Japanese government announced what's going to be situation deemed as force majeure or not. It's a very unique guideline for limited situation, especially for like a lease agreement for apartment or so some typical agreements. It's gonna be still useful Japanese legal perspective, and we often see the government's announcement. It's gonna be happening for in respect of the force majeure in general in Japanese legal market. I'd like to hear what's going to be happening in Brazil. Thank you.
So in Brazil, I think it did took everyone by surprise because I think I don't work that much with contracts, but I think it was definitely a case of force majeure. Nobody. I mean, maybe a couple of months or weeks earlier, because when we started seeing China's situation, but it really came out of the blue, and no one, the world had never seen anything like that. So it was, and it still is being discussed by many parties. But I think it's something that it's like 9/11, you learn from it. So no one ever thought like insurance, oh, should I insure my building from terrorist, an airplane attack? I mean, it was just unthinkable, and then nowadays, I'm pretty sure every single insurance policy has that. So it's something that we learned, and sometimes we would use some like catch-all phrase, an act of God or a force majeure would be considered any kind of flood, pandemics, hurricane, and all of that. But I think that now we go deeper into this kind of section in an agreement. It's not just like, just copy and paste from some other contract. We stopped and realized how important they might be in the future. And what we do with our contracts is, ever since the beginning of the pandemics, we might include a provision saying, okay, we have the force majeure, but of course the COVID-19 pandemics cannot be considered force majeure, because we all know we've been living it for a year. So what we do to try to protect our clients is really to either specify exactly what can be and what cannot be, and then learn from what happens,
Thanks, Dai. Thanks, Larissa. Yes, we've been seeing these discussions. I think we get somewhat biased by what we've seen. So now we look to this clause and we must say, well, pandemic must be inserted here. And now the discussions with respect to COVID-19 being included, I think are growing, because one might say, well, we are executing this agreement, and I want you to perform what we're contracting. So it cannot be on force majeure on day one. On the other side, the other party may rise. Well, I know the current situation, but we have already been in different situations during this pandemic time. So I think it gets trickier to discuss this provision. And in the future, depending of the pandemic, it may render additional trouble for the judiciary system to interpret. I see we have 6 minutes left of our proposed time. I'm not sure if anyone has any additional question or remark.
Can I ask another question to Dai?
Yes, please.
So Dai, I know it wasn't the scope of your presentation, but I'm really curious, how do you see the Olympic Games? Because I mean, I wanted to go to the Olympic. I had actually plans, but then I got married and my kid was born, and then okay, it was postponed. So I was like, yeah, okay, now I can go. But how do you see it? I mean, do you think it will happen? And because I know I saw there was some backlash, you know, from people in Japan, the government, regarding this situation.
Yeah, it's a very $1 million question because I have bought a ticket as well, and it's not a cheap one, very, very expensive one. And yeah, actually, so the Tokyo governor is a host of the Tokyo Olympic game this year. Gonna be discussing with so Olympic committee about the situation, and they are still discussing. And they are always announcing we hold Olympic game as scheduled. But many Japanese governors or Japanese people have against to open the game. And so last week, the one newspaper tried to have the questionnaire to many Japanese people. Do you agree with hold the Olympic game or not? If not, how can we do that for that? Almost, according to the news source, 70% of Japanese people against to hold the Olympic game. So I'm not sure. I'd like to have the Olympic game, and I see the games as I saw in the Rio, but this is the situation. And the game will start in 2 months, and many pre-games already held in Tokyo or near prefectures. So it's still discussing, but the point is Japanese government announced that they are reluctant to invite people from outside of Japan. So I'm not sure still, but maybe outside people outside of Japan cannot attend the event, I think. But I still hope that the game will hold, and many people enjoy the game, even though via the online in this summer, I hope. And at the point, so I already purchased my ticket at like how can I say, like the price of the $10,000 like that, $10,000 like that. So it's a very huge investment for me. But in any case, if the Olympic game canceled, the payment will be paid back to me. So that's so one good news for me. Sorry, saying some personal things. Clarissa, so when you hold the Olympic game in Rio, there is a problem about Zika virus, right? And at the time, I think that there was some sad news, but we believe that so Brazilian people well managed and limit the affected area. Do you believe that the Zika virus situation it was different from this COVID-19 situation?
Yeah, I remember there was the Zika virus situation, but I do think it's different because if I'm not mistaken, and again, I might be, I think it was more concentrated in certain areas. So it was kind of easier to control, even though it was, you know, an insect. But if I'm not mistaken, it was more serious in the northeast of the country and not that much in Rio. But we did have some concerns about that, and I remember the goalie from the American soccer team, the ladies soccer team. She made some jokes or something like that, and it was really, I mean, it was there was a bad repercussion both for her and for Brazil. But I do think it's different because the pandemic's, to begin with, it's all over. And there's this huge danger of people, for example, I would love to go, but, you know, people going from Brazil to Japan and taking the virus with them. And, you know, and Japan has not been that affected, you know, if you compare our numbers. So I think it's a risk for people going, for people there, for the athletes, for everyone. So I'm really sad, but I think sad. It's a risk, you know, receiving foreigners, and it's a risk for everyone, really. Even but on the other hand, I think if anyone could host an Olympic Games during the pandemics, it would be Japan, you know, because it's really, as you mentioned in your presentation, the most organized and you know, you can the hygiene standards are really high. Everybody's used to wearing a mask, so it's not a hustle as it is in Brazil. So I think on the other hand, it would be, I think you would have a safe Olympic game. Even with all this situation, I think.
Yeah, but it's still a challenge for Japanese people and as well as for the athletes coming from outside of Japan. So I would love to watch in the game, but yeah, let's see.
You let us know then.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dai. Thank you, Clarissa. Anyone else? Let's see. I think we're good to go. On behalf of the Center for Legal Asian Studies, I would like to thank once again Clarissa and Dai for your time, for kindly accepting the invitation, for preparing your presentations. I think we had some nice inputs this evening, and we render food for thought of what's to come in this different transitory but permanent regime we are living. And I would also like to thank everyone that made this transmission possible. This includes also, apart from the invitees, our coordinators, our viewers from YouTube, I mean, all the technical assistance we are having here conducted by our team, specifically by Gustavo. And I would love, and the most important, I would like to thank our students from Sala, which are always present and very active. See you again next time, and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Really fun, and I learned